Hybrid fitness racing continues to grow from a media perspective. Podcasts like this covering as many angles as possible. But in a world of social media and YouTubers, there are some great channels starting to emerge. We get to speak to one of those great channels today. Hello and welcome to On The Rocks podcast with me, Coach Marshy. Hope everyone is well. There is so much happening over this last summer period in the hybrid fitness racing area, races, media, that it's really hard to keep up. But I think that's a really good thing. And I'm hoping that today's guest will be able to share quite a lot of insight into what's been going on over this last summer period. So let's welcome our guest in today. Hello, Martin. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you for having me. Marshy, how you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. And, you know, we appreciate your time and love that you've come on the show. And let's start with that background that you're sitting in front of. A lot of people will be quite familiar with that background, I should think.
Yeah. This is my den. This is my office, and I do my YouTube channel from this office. Predominantly the introductions before I go out into the world and find mostly hybrid fitness pursuits. It's not exclusively that on the channel. It's adventures essentially. That's kind of the bottom line of my channel, but just at the moment, because hybrid fitness is everywhere and I've kind of prioritized it in my training, a lot of content is simply about what I go and do with myself. So if I go into the world, I lay out a nice introduction, whether it be a Hyrox event, whether it be a DEKA event or a Deadly Dozen. I'll tell everybody what the plan is, where I'm going, a little bit about the event, if there's an explanation to have, and then I'll go and do it. Regardless of how that race does, it's almost irrelevant how I do in the race. I will then analyze how it's gone afterwards, back in here after the office, and look at how my race went with a bit of footage from the day, and like to build up very realistic stories, a little bit of context. Everybody's story is a little bit different going into a race, and mine is equally unique to anybody's, and it creates a kind of a story all the way through to the end, a natural conclusion to each video before moving on to whatever's next in the schedule, in the year, whatever I've got booked in. So yeah, it's a channel aimed at, well, anybody really, but I do generally see in the analytics behind YouTube that a lot of people my own age and gender generally are attracted to watching my content because it's relatable. I always aim to make it quite relatable in terms of I don't necessarily sell propaganda. I sell my experiences of events. If it goes well, fantastic. I'll sell that all day long. But if it goes bad, I'm very truthful and transparent and make sure that people understand that you can have a bad day in the office and that can happen at an event as well. And sometimes it's about poking fun at yourself, smiling about it all, because it's at the end of the day, a year from now, you won't care about your times, but you'll have the memories of the event. And I think that's probably more important. And I think there's a little bit of a subtext to my channel. Like I always try to get across to people that try to make the most of what you've got while you've got it. You know, you've got a very short period of time in which you can be this good at stuff before inevitably age gets the best of you. And I'm not saying that age is particularly young. We're seeing some fantastic athletes that are over 60, 50, 40, whatever, that are just dominating the hybrid fitness space. But anything can take you out of an equation, an injury, an illness. And it's, yeah, the sort of, if you read between the lines in my videos, it's get it done, while you can before that decision's taken away. And it's trying to get people out, try to motivate people to get in, even if it's someone that's never done a hybrid fitness event or a run or any kind of weekend warrior stuff. If I get 1 or 2 people to go and do these things that they were on the fence about or doubting themselves about, then my mission is successful, and I get comments all the time from people at events saying, the only reason I've come to this event is because I've watched your video about it and it gave me the confidence and the information. And then you see how fun it is and how rewarding it is. And it comes back to not really caring about how you do on any given day. It's about doing it in the first place. And I always try to come back to that in the videos. It's not always about the time. It's in this sport, there's a lot of focus on time, and you can let that performance anxiety eat away at you if you don't step back from it every now and again. And there's people out there that take it super competitively, and those guys are fantastic. But I've always considered myself sort of a man of the people, like the 80%, the 90% of people that might never get near a podium or win a prize or whatever. I like to tell stories to that demographic. The 90% and down will relate more to my content than the 10% and up, if that makes sense. I mean, the guys that are winning it are another level, and sometimes that can be a little bit unrelatable to someone, say 70% further down the list of athletes. So I try to create content that can be consumed by your everyday athlete, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's really cool to hear. And actually the in-depth sort of level you went to there with like the demographic and that relatable side of things. I think in this world of, as you put it, that top 10%, it's very easy with like that side of social media, for example, to dominate when actually there's some really good stories underneath it. And, I think I've come across your channel a long time ago. We've probably crossed paths so regularly without even realizing we're standing next to each other, but we never really made that connection yet. But a few of my team were standing on the start line with you at DEKA Fit just recently in Derby. And when they said they were standing next to you, I was like, oh, I know that guy. I watch his videos, as did one of their husbands as well. So he was a bit starstruck that his wife was standing there with you on the start line. But the stories that they've told about your channel are very much fit into what you just said about the people coming up to you and mentioning that, there's been inspiration from it. And I think we really need that. So I would say you're doing us a service in the Hyrox industry, in the Deadly Dozen industry, in the DEKA industry, all these races that have emerged over the last 5 years, really since the pandemic. Someone like you is doing a great service, because the majority of the people there are everyday athletes, not the elites. And we need to know some information of what to do, how it might be on race day. And I think, for example, the video that you did at Deadly Dozen Birmingham, Alexander Stadium, for someone that has no idea what a Deadly Dozen is, well, if they watch that video for 12 minutes, they're going to have a really good idea. So I think it's really good that you're doing it. And like Ian Kay, my fellow podcaster over at UK Fitness Racing Podcast, I believe you've been on there as well. He like does this service for the industry, and it's really good that we're all here now. And I said that in the intro, that media presence is growing, but it's sort of organic, authentic content. It's not necessarily high level of shooting or a high level of kind of financial backing. It's just done as a very natural, everyday way of doing content, which kind of fits in with the audiences that we're speaking to. What are your thoughts on that kind of summing up of it all?
Yeah, what we see a lot of, certainly with Hyrox, they invest a lot in their media output. There's so much of it in every possible way it can get into your eyes and ears through social media, and they employ terrifically talented but highly financed media production teams, and you see them all the time when you're at a Hyrox event, and they're chasing certain athletes around. They're pouring after the really fast guys, but what it generally creates is almost a propaganda. They're not a propaganda because they are following those guys around, but it's almost like a glossy cover to the book. That's probably a better way of describing it. It's inside there's many pages of stories, like you say, and experiences that are going on that just go unnoticed because the media teams are generally focusing on only a handful of those stories, and they'll generally lean towards ones that stand off the page. They'll lean towards some of the adaptive athletes and the struggles that they have, and they'll lean towards the guys that are going for a personal best or a world record. And these are the headlines on the front of the book. And it's I like to look a little bit beneath that and sort of tell a different story. And there's so many people out there that have stories of struggle at Hyrox's, but you generally only hear about these in the comments of much further down on threads on Facebook or wherever. And yeah, I think it's easy to be seduced because you look at those videos, those really slow-mo grainy footage of people on the ski ergs and smashing out various exercise stations, and it looks fantastic, and you can see why those images would make you want to go and do it. And it is, and it then makes you ask, why do they need to make those when they're selling out every event? Because it seems mad to try to sell something to the people that can't necessarily then compete because of the ticket shortage problems that we've seen in the last sort of 2-3 years. It seems like they're advertising something that not everyone can do, and it's, I guess, while they're continuing to create that demand, that they can continue to sell out massive arenas, and it is a fantastic business model. There's no doubt about it. You can't criticize it because they're making that they're literally carving path that's just not existed up until now, and before you know it, it will be the biggest single hybrid fitness entity on the planet if it isn't already. So yeah, it's a weird thing to sort of towed along in the wake of like yourself and myself, Ian, anyone who's sort of found themselves talking more about this sort of content and this event and everything else that's popped up since is almost a direct result of Hyrox sort of leading the way, and things like Deadly Dozen and DEKA, they're kind of slightly behind in terms of scale, but it won't be long before they're able to sort of muster a bit of momentum themselves and start to challenge Hyrox for athletes, because that's essentially how these things go. One generally leads the way until competition rises to equal level, and then it starts to spread the athletes out, and then that's when the real business starts to begin. Right now, Hyrox is winning by quite a lot, and there's lots of other events that are rising to the top as a result. But yeah, it's an interesting place to be right now, isn't it? Because
100%.
Yeah, it's Hyrox was my first taste of hybrid fitness. What was yours?
Yeah, I mean, ours was the same. So I say ours, that everyone from my gym, we all did Hyrox Olympia 2023. So May 23, we didn't have to buy a ticket the day they were released. That we bought them probably 2 weeks after they were released, and we still got one. It sold out a few days after we bought one, but we didn't have to rush to the ticket sales. Then we became an affiliate, and then we got involved with the merry-go-round over the last 2 years. But we tend to be very successful on the pre-entry with the affiliation. So there's a lot of criticism out there from affiliate gyms that what's the point in being affiliated? I don't even get early access.
Yeah,
that isn't our experience, to be honest.
Yeah.
We've done that. So yeah.
It's a funny that whole space is a funny one. Because I've made a few videos about getting tickets. I don't even know why I did that. I felt like one day I was sitting in a queue for the tickets. I thought, well, maybe I can film this. So I put the camera up while I sat in the queues, and I got a ticket that day. And I was kind of trying to make a video to show how hard it was to get a ticket, and then I got a ticket. I got a ticket right at the end. I spent all day sitting and waiting, and eventually got a ticket, which was kind of a happy ending for me. But from trying to show people how hard it was, it didn't necessarily prove my point. And then the next video I made, it was trying to see if there was a pattern to the how they dish out tickets, because there's patterns to everything. And I sort of found a few ways to improve chances. So I sort of put them in a video and put that out as well. Just ways to increase chances. I'm not in an affiliate gym, so I've not got early access. But even as it turns out, even the people that have early access these days are struggling. And I believe even the judges, if you volunteer at previous events, the getting a free place at a subsequent event, that's gone now, is it? And you just get early access. Is that right?
You get early access, but they get a different early access to the actual affiliate. So they're almost like there's a guarantee of X amount of tickets for them as well now.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's that whole how they manage it's always been a very difficult problem to solve for Hyrox. And all we can do as consumers is I'll probably moan about it. And the only reason we moan about it is because we're passionate about the sport and we enjoy doing it. And it's a kick in the nuts when you can't do it. And that comes back round to that supply and demand issue of there simply being too many people and that want tickets. And there's this demand is never ending as well, because with every new event, you've got a new cohort of people that have seen, as we go back to those glossy videos, those slow-mo gritty videos of someone struggling through one of the exercise stations, and they want to go do it. So it creates this new cohort of customers, while the existing people that have done 1, 2, 3, 10, whatever, want to come back and do more. And it creates this, I've never done one, I deserve to do one, versus, well, I'm a loyal customer. And it's a complicated problem to solve. It really is. But I think it's getting better as the events are starting to go back in the week, as far as Wednesday, with new events like Cardiff popping up. And we're likely going to see more in the future. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be limited by things like venues, the size of venues. Even Manchester at the Manchester Central, that venue is already starting to feel very small compared to London Excel or London Olympia, or the slightly bigger, more fit for purpose venues. It's suddenly starting to feel like your feet are too big for your shoes, kind of thing, and there's too many people in that hall. I agree. There's lots of scalability problems, and they're doing the best they can. And I think 5 years down the line, we might be looking at something very different. Certainly, if the competition are continuing to thrive like they are.
Yeah, no, I echo all of that, and actually agree on all of those points you made, for sure. So here we are. We make media, but Martin, away from this, who are you? What do you kind of do as a daily basis? And then at the weekends, you now do a lot of fitness racing. So how did you kind of end up here from who you are as a daily person into fitness racing? How did that all start for you?
That's a good question. So COVID, I guess that's a good starting point. Everyone knows when that was. I went into COVID. I had 2020 loads of events booked, loads of big events, not hybrid fitness, but other events. I've been doing events for years and years, and I had the rat race, man versus trilogy booked in. So 3 big races put on by Rat Race. If you don't know what Rat Race are, they do adventure runs, long, big runs, ultra marathon distances, sometimes with obstacles or things to do on the way. They're fantastic events. And I had all these booked in. I was so excited about doing them. And as COVID struck, they dropped one by one until the whole year was a write-off. And they all got scheduled back in 21. And after I'd done those in 20, I was starting to think, what's next? And I started to look around as to what I could find. I was looking more along that vein, that running with something else, not quite OCR, because they're quite short. I've done plenty of OCR and I enjoy that, but I was after something bigger. And an advert popped up, one of these banner adverts in Facebook, and it was a zoomed out picture of people pushing and pulling sleds with the other exercise stations in the background. And I thought, oh, that looks all right. And I must have mulled over this decision for months. And I kept going back to this picture thinking, that looks all right. Could I do that? Could I do that? And I was on, because of COVID, like a lot of people, all they could do with regards to exercise is run. So I'd had a good 18 months of running every single day, and I'd lost a load of weight, felt really fit. I saw that and thought, oh, there's running in that. I'll be really good at that. So I eventually booked it in the December. So this goes back to what you said about tickets and not having to get in the queue. I booked it in the December for January. So you could literally 2 months from the event. I didn't have a huge amount of time to do any real prep. I had no idea about hybrid fitness and compromise running and blah, 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 all of the stuff that we now know loads about. And there wasn't anything on the internet. That was, I think at that time, that event at Manchester was the third in the UK. I think the others were just before COVID struck, and then everything stopped. So I thought, right, I'm going to go to this and I'm going to run this. And I took my GoPro and I took my wife and we filmed the entire thing. And I don't know what tripped in my brain that day, but I decided that instead of just filming what I'm doing and putting some half-assed edit up onto YouTube, I would talk a little bit more about it and do a little bit more. This is where I am. This is what I'm doing, and this is how it went. That kind of thing. Before that, like I said, all my videos were just race footage cobbled together with some music, somewhere to upload it. That's all YouTube was to me before that. And while I was out on the track, there was another YouTuber. Mark Lewis was out on the track. You might have seen his stuff. Fantastic guy. He's does a load of content. He's now moved out to a farm and doing loads of other type of content at the moment. But he and I were on the track at the same time, albeit on different exercise stations. And when I got back, he made his video before I even started to edit mine. And I watched his video and thought, oh yeah, maybe I could do a little bit more with what I film. And the cogs started to turn. And although I didn't film everything at that first event properly how I would like to by my nowadays standards, it got the cogs turning and the ball rolling, so to speak. So by the next event in Birmingham, which was in the October of that same year, so 7-8 months away, I thought, right, I'm going to film this, I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to narrate over it. And that started this whole chain reaction of videos. And at that one, I think I even started my walk the floor videos. I don't know if you've seen those. It's where I go, before my actual race, I go around each of the exercise stations, a little bit like explaining the format while simultaneously telling people about what I'm looking at. So I could pointing out, say how people are pushing the sleds. You know, there's like 4 different ways to push a sled. So I'll look at that guy's doing it short-handed and that guy's doing it long-armed, or if they're on the pull, walking it back versus arm over arm. You know, I'll be talking about what I can see that's happening in front of me, and I'll follow a wave or two around and cheer people on as I go, and until I've got to the end, and then I've got an entire story of what a Hyrox looks like at that venue. So I put that video out quite quickly, quite soon after the event, sometimes even before the event's finished, depending on what day I've gone. And yeah, I've been able to go to each of the UK venues and make a similar video at each one, and a race day video. So I've tried to make 2 at each. And as the other events have popped up, I've gone out to those I think the ticketing problem, as we've mentioned, was the catalyst for me to go find other events. Now, while you might see that as a bad, see the ticketing problem as a bad thing, I saw the silver lining in that, because that made me that year, 2023, start booking other events. So I immediately booked Nuclear Fit. I immediately booked my first Deadly Dozen, and then I started looking at DEKA as well. So the consequence of the ticket problem really had a nice silver lining. But I've always felt this kind of loyalty to Hyrox to come back to keep doing them, and I still very much enjoy the format. And the next event I do will be my 17th outing. So I teach.
Wow, yeah, good.
If you go back through my videos, you'll probably see me go up and down. And going back to what I said at the start, it's about telling different stories. Fitness isn't linear. You can have a fantastic year one year and then be not so good the next year, and then be better the following year. And you only really see those patterns after a few years of doing it. When you first start, it's all about, I must go faster than my previous race. I must go faster than my previous race. But life can often get in the way. You know, in the time that I've been making these videos, my son's been in and out of hospital a few times. My mum's had a brain tumor, so I've had to go and commit all this kind of effort and resource and, you know, difficulties with this part of my life or difficulties with this part of my life, and they always have a bearing on your races. Say before Glasgow earlier this year, that's when my mum was in hospital having an operation, and it's the worst kind of trauma to watch, and it happened right before I'd left. So it didn't really affect my performance at that one because I'd already done all my training. I was already ready. And that while I was away, while I was up in Scotland, all I could think about was getting back. You know, the second my race finished, I walked to my car and drove the 5 hours home, because, you know, you don't necessarily feel like in the celebratory mood. I got my PB that day, and I still, you know, it didn't fill me with the joy it would normally. And I think it's just the point I'm trying to make is that life can affect you, and it can affect your fitness and your training and your preparation. Illness and injury, this is something I'm dealing with a little bit more this year. So every athlete has this journey, and anyone who thinks fitness is linear, that you only ever going to get fitter as you make your way through this, is madness, and it's untrue. And certainly as you get older, it's getting harder and harder to do that. I've just turned 45, so I'm not a young man. I've just gone up an age category in Hyrox. It's, you know, it's harder than it's ever been for me. I know everybody's getting older, but man, I'd love to be doing Hyrox in my 30s. That was a different time for me, and you know, I sort of dedicated that chapter of my life, my 30 to 35s. I was lifting strong. I went through a strongman training phase, so I was competing in amateur strongman and stuff like that. And then when I got injured in that, the injury is the catalyst for change. It often is. That led me back to running. So I dropped all my strongman timber and then became really fast at running. So I went from lifting 300 kilos to running 17:53 in a park run. What you can achieve is insane if you focus on one particular type of training. I guess that's and you can go from being incredibly strong 1 second to incredibly fast the next. And then when hybrid fitness came, I thought, right, this is kind of like the best of both. You know, it allows my running to maintain. You know, my running fitness can maintain at quite a high level. Like, I don't have to drop off at my park runs or my long distance runs or half marathons, while simultaneously lifting weights and doing all of that resistance training and hybrid style practice of the exercise stations. It felt right. I wasn't lifting as heavy, so there was much less likelihood of injury, and I'm keeping the weight off because of the running, the cardio components, and the high heart rate stuff. So it felt right for my age that hybrid fitness came just at that right time for me. So sorry to go on.
No. It's really interesting, and I've kind of got two questions from what you've just said there, and we'll kind of unpack it a little bit. But earlier on, you kind of highlighted the great stories out there from the different age categories all the way up. So first question from what you just said, do you feel personally for you, but also for the world, that hybrid fitness racing is here to stay?
Yes, I do. It's got some. The next 10 years are going to be very critical in its development. What we don't want to do, what we don't want is to see the big competitions that we know and love now to go out of business. We've seen a similar pattern before happen with the OCR, right? I've referenced that before. Tough Mudder is a fantastic example of this. Tough Mudder in 2010 came to the United Kingdom or thereabouts, and everybody was about Tough Mudder. And that was the Hyrox of its day. Everyone was doing that. There weren't other competitions that were anywhere near as good or as well put together as that. So, and they could charge whatever they liked, and they sold out events all over the country until the competition rose, and you got independents like Wolf Run and Nuclear Races. They popped up and they started to take their chunk of that kind of market. And before you know it, you got things like Spartan that, again, taking massive chunks. And before you know it, Tough Mudders in administration and being bought out and by Spartan Race. So what we don't necessarily want to see is a repeat of that kind of history where something looked almost untouchable in terms of business and decision making until they started to price people out and other competitions were cheaper. And that's the downfall of these businesses. If they're not careful, as desirable as they are at first, they potentially could be the creator of their own demise. So it's about remaining affordable, accessible, will be the key to moving forward. Right now, we're still in the expansion phase. So obviously that's fantastic, and we all want that to continue because, you know, the bigger they get, the more spaces there are, and the more tickets there are to these events, and more people that can go and enjoy them. And that's what we want, really. It's just a balancing act. And I'm all for all of the independents coming up because I had some fantastic days out at Wolf Run and Nuclear Races, and now I'm doing the same with Hybrid Fitness. And Deadly Dozen is a fantastic example. It's one of the best things to come out of this sort of same situation that's occurring. It's rising up because Hyrox has made people hungry for hybrid fitness competitions, and Deadly Dozen are simply catching the overflow, and even more so, they're starting to take little nibbles out of what Hyrox are doing. And yeah, like I said, I've had some fantastic days at the independent events. So yeah, I'm a massive supporter of these types of startups.
Yeah, I've got a little note to ask you a question on that later on. But the second question from the bit just before, you talked about fitness not being linear, and you know your mum's situation. Hopefully, is she all good now? Hopefully, she's all good now.
It was tough at the start of this year. We're 6 months down the line now since that. And she's on her feet and walking around. It was a tough time, and yeah, I'm not here to talk about that, but yeah, it was more of an example of life gets in the way of fitness and events and training and doing stuff, and it can be tough sometimes. Certainly, I think as you get older and your responsibilities get more and more, and you've got, certainly at my stage of life, you've got sort of parents that are getting older and you've got kids. So you kind of having to deal it from both ends. But it's important. I certainly think it's important for guys my age to carve out a little bit for themselves. I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. I firmly believe that hybrid fitness has brought on a new type of midlife crisis. No longer, men all over the country are in gyms smashing it rather than buying expensive cars and chasing young women. It's changed the game a little bit. People are investing in themselves with that. The midlife crisis is essentially the realization that time is running out, right? That's essentially what a midlife crisis is, and it makes you go do daft stuff. And I think hybrid fitness is making middle-aged people all over the place do fantastic stuff, and it's only going to add to their life. It enriches their lives with fitness, and is only going to add to their lives in terms of like longevity and stuff. So it's a fantastic thing.
And that was like the sort of direct question that made me think of the question when you said about your mum's situation. It was, you say about men and midlife crisis, but we hear the words or the sentence, and I mean this completely kind of provocative towards women, but we hear about mum guilt a lot. What about dad guilt? You're doing a brilliant job on your YouTube channel. I can vouch for you and know that will be taking up a certain amount of time that is not a little chunk of time. You're carving out that little bit of time for yourself, and you say that's important for men, but us dads, we all get that dad guilt as well, do we?
I think that's that's a very valid point. There are times when I'm sat in here recording or editing, where I could be outside and doing things with the kids. Now it comes down to balance and priorities. I try to do these videos when the kids are off doing something else. Right now they're off swimming, so I'll be pretty much useless anyway because it's a lesson. So I'll just be sat there. Luckily, their mummy has took them today. On a Wednesday, I would be taking my daughter to track athletics. So I do my bit, and I take my kids to school all 5 days and pick them up most of those days as well. So yeah, there is sometimes, certainly when I'm away. When I went to Glasgow, I'll use that as an example again. It means that you can't necessarily go to Glasgow from Leicester, compete and come back quickly. So it's a day's travel up, a night over, at least one night, and then doing your competition. And if you've got it, like I did in earlier this year, I drove back immediately after my event, which meant I could barely get out of the car after 5 hours. So dad guilt does get you sometimes, but I think the way I justify it is I try to expose Charlie and Isabel to what I do, and I have always done that. In terms of, I take them to think, well, it's more common nowadays, now they're a little bit older, but I try to show them what I do. I want them to see the events that I go to, with the hope that they absorb some of that importance about health and fitness. We're very that way minded in this house, as you can expect, but leading by example is probably the best way to describe it, and hope that just some of that rubs off. They may rebel completely when they get older, but right now all I can do is set a good example for those kids, so they know it's almost a non-negotiable that to look after your health and fitness, not just now as a child, but when you're older, like their old man. And I'm going to continue for as long as I can to lead by example, show them that this is a fantastic way to stay healthy. It's not a burden when it's as fun as it is. Isabel, who's 9.5, she looks at things like Deadly Dozen and she can't wait to go.
That's really cool.
Yeah, whether or not she can hold out for another 6.5 years to come and do one with me or whatever. Most of these events have a 16-year-old entry, I think. Some have an 18, but she's already raring to go.
I mean, obviously DEKA's 14, so I think I saw DEKA kids now, I guess.
I think there's a 10-year-old division at DEKA, because as I was running around, in fact, there's a kid herring around in my video, and as I'm running around the track, there's a kid with long hair. He was just in front of me in the queue as we started for DEKA, and I really wanted to say, "How old are you?" but it felt a bit weird in the moment. But I thought, right, I'll look that up afterwards and find out what the age is for the entry level, because he seemed to be running out with his mum at the start line. They seemed to be she was off going and doing a normal DEKA, and he was doing a junior or a kids version of the same version thing. So Isabel's 6 months away from 10 years, so I'm very much keen to get her to something like that. And looking at the socials, it looks like DEKA is going to put on more of those big non-affiliate events next year, aren't they? I think there was 3 go again at East Midlands, Manchester and
London.
London, yeah,
London.
So I'm definitely in for 2 of those. I don't think we've got proper dates yet, or I'm not sure where we stand currently, but I'm going to be getting to at least 2 of those.
Yeah, no, same for us as well. And I think by the time our kids grow up, sounds like they might be similar ages, that if the last 3 years of data with Hyrox, 90,000 worldwide, 150,000, 600,000, if that exponential curve continues to grow, that would make these mainstream sports by the time our kids are 16.
Yes, it's mental. It has to plateau. I can only assume there's a plateau coming. It's just right now they're launching in so many new cities that I mean, it's about frequency at the moment, isn't it? The more cities that they can get into, and it's boosting their numbers. But it's from a mainstream sport perspective, will it ever get above where it is now in terms of recognition, like sport recognition? Because we over time, these kind of modular sports where it's made up of other things, like OCR and like hybrid fitness, you find it never really gets made official, and people are often like, well, would we ever see this in the Olympics? Well, I'd struggle to see how it would. There's so many question marks over so many things that the idea, I can't seem to fathom a path from what we've got now to the Olympics. There's been some trials in OCR before now. I know that they've tried to do some Olympic trialing for that, but I guess that's always going to be the standard, isn't it? That's what's maybe the people behind Hyrox, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're happy just to leave it as an experience-based event, physical event for people to come and test themselves. It may never progress, really. We don't know yet.
They were very keen in the Hyrox World Championship press conference to discuss the idea of going for Olympic status. However, and people know that they'll have seen me now on the Deadly Dozen microphone, etc. So, but from a complete objective point of view, for me, the one that would be obvious would be the one that already fits in the arena of common Olympic venues, which is the Deadly Dozen. That would almost be easier to get into the Olympics than Hyrox would be, because the arena doesn't change and it's already there. And the athletics, runs for, say, 3 weeks of the 5-week Olympic program, well, that means that stadium is usable then for another sport, and there you are, Deadly Dozen fits on that track, and you just need to put the labours down in the middle there. So, will one of them end up there? I don't know. Obviously, Spartan Racer are a big player in trying to push OCR to the Olympics, and that history is well documented, as you touch on there. So it'll be really interesting, but I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
I guess the modular element to it is the bit that they're probably going to be hardest to refine. I think Deadly Dozen at the moment are struggling with the movement standards on some of the lever actions, like the squats and the holding things above your head and things like that. If they took that to the next level, the movement standards would have to be refined to be something else. Right now, people do things as fast as they can, and it creates probably a sense of hurry through exercise stations. And with all the best will in the world, with all the best judges in the world, movement standards can be hard to enforce. And I think this is where they might find it difficult moving these levels of physical exercise up to Olympic standards. It's like you say, it's going to be interesting. There are loads of obstacles to overcome, however it looks, if it ever gets anything past. I think right now it's exciting to see the things like Deadly Dozen creating their own championship. They, a year ago, they were just one race at one track in one city. And now they're already looking at a championship version of that. And I think that is an insane trajectory from that point to that point, isn't it? They're
huge.
2 years of events, and they're already looking at creating a structure whereby you can race the best of the best from each of these events around the country, around the world, I guess. So,
and we're two individuals that have been, like, from our media perspectives that we're doing now, we've been around the Deadly Dozen since like the day one almost, and we've been able to see that growth when being on site at the races, and therefore we followed that social media very early, things like that. So we've seen that grow, and like you say, it seems to be an insane growth curve within such a small period of time. And now it's all over the world. You can throw out places like Malta are going to have a Deadly Dozen race. Then the thing is, they're never going to get Hyrox because they don't have a venue to have one in. Maybe they have the weather to do it outside, but then are they going to be able to replicate Hyrox? So they'll probably never have a Hyrox in Malta, but they'll have a Deadly Dozen. Mexico has not long been on the Hyrox roster, but they've already got a Deadly Dozen within the first 18 months. And that growth is it's insane, and it's hard to comprehend how fast it's going. And then, you know, Jay has gone and announced the British champs, the world champs. I see that Germany's now advertised a championship race for Germany. And, you know, if you're a betting man, you're going to say there's going to be some other championship races that will fall in line with the British champs so that it all feeds into the world champs next September. And that's in 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
It's insane to think about. And you know what I'm really glad about that. We touched on it already a little bit. The DEKA event, the one that we just went to, the East Midlands one in Derby, was the first, as I understand it, arena-based, non-affiliated version of the DEKA event in the UK. Right, it's massive in America. You see it all the time. These big events, and you know they've really adopted it. And I think they got that out before Hyrox had got into America. So DEKA probably was doing quite well. And now obviously Hyrox is over there and they're competing for market space. But for us, seeing a DEKA like this pop up in the United Kingdom provides another alternative to Hyrox, which is fantastic. I would arguably say that the DEKA event is a little bit more accessible. I don't know if you agree from a sort of a difficulty perspective. If you were to rank the difficulties of these events, they're all tough if you go fast. But I generally find that the DEKA is probably the most accessible because the distances are not too far, the weights are not too heavy, the exercises are not too complicated. It is very simple stuff, and the runs are only at most 500 meters. So I definitely had, say, more fun at DEKA than I did at Hyrox, which is more grizzle and suffering. So yes, it's great to see because you've now kind of got these 3 big events almost. Obviously Hyrox is the top point, but DEKA and Deadly Dozen down here, if they continue to put on big events, and while Deadly Dozen had relatively humble beginnings at Macclesfield, and it still has those events at Macclesfield, they're now booking the Alexander Stadium and places of equal magnitude, which add that arena feel to the Deadly Dozen. You can feel a little bit sparse at some of the sort of lower running tracks around the country, but now that was a real gear change for the Deadly Dozen, and there's plenty of athletics tracks around the world that are massive in terms of grandstand in appearance and scale. And it really, even though there's no one in all the seats, it still felt fantastic to be in that stadium. I'll
ask you about that actually specifically in a second, because you bring up a really good point. So I'm going to come back to that because that's really important. But on the DEKA thing, you've gone really nicely into my next kind of question for you. You did the most fantastic video, I thought, of DEKA Fit in Derby, East Midlands. You did it was a great video. If anyone came to my gym and said, what should I watch to try and understand DEKA? I would get them to watch that video that you created, purely on the basis that it definitely comes from someone who's like not involved with necessarily a DEKA affiliate, but you've understood the strong, the mild, the fit very quickly. But the way you talk about it is very much for that everyday person coming into the sport, right? And it was a great video, although you were capturing your race as well. And you sort of talked us through what you did there. I would say to anyone sort of listening or watching this, go and watch that video if you want to learn about DEKA, because you'll learn everything DEKA is in about, I think it was a 25-minute video. You'll learn everything you need to know in that video you produced. But the question is, how did you think DEKA did? And what was your kind of analysis from an athlete's perspective, but also from a hybrid fitness racing consumer's perspective?
Bottom line, that event was fantastic. There was a few constructive criticisms that came out of it, and they are tiny compared to how well I thought the entire thing was put on. I had no problems at registration, I had no problems getting in or any of that stuff. Everything was laid out nice. My only criticism about the venue is that the spectating side of things was a little bit difficult. You were sort of thrown up into the nosebleeds and had to stare like through binoculars to see the action the other side inside the velodrome, one floor down. That was a bit difficult. I think they fell a little tiny bit behind on releasing people because there was a bit of a queue and they were releasing in threes. And occasionally you could argue that they could have done with more judges, but this is something hybrid fitness events. There's always seemingly always a shortage of judges, and the only way they can ever really improve on that particular situation is to make the judge package or the volunteer package just more desirable. I guess that's the only way beyond paying people to come and do it. That because obviously that would be the next solution, wouldn't it? Go to a temp agency. People that would normally be waiters and stuff can easily count reps on. There's a million different solutions, but right now most of them do a volunteer thing, and the volunteers will get some kind of package, a bag of goodies, a coupon for a race or an early access. The incentives are there, but if there's not enough judges on the day, maybe the incentives are not good enough. And in order to truly rank people and put people on podiums and give them money prizes, you've got to ensure that everybody has a judge where they're supposed to have a judge. Else it suddenly the argument about fairness comes into play, and so forth and so forth. But yeah, in terms of DEKA and that event, I had such a good time on it. I remember running out because of the atmosphere there. I remember running out on the track, first lap, singing. I've never literally out loud singing because I think Bon Jovi or something. I can't remember what it was. Not a Bon Jovi fan. And I was running around this track, and I saw that young kid. I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And in my head, I'm already thinking about. I'm not even thinking about what I've got. If you're not careful, you can think too much on a 3-lap race and forget a lap. So I had to sort of wind my neck in a little bit, and like with a lot of things, I try to count on my fingers. I know it's simply a not mess things up thing that I do. That I try if I'm running more than 2 laps, then I start counting on my fingers, because else I'll get to 2 laps and be like, was that 2 or 3? And then before you know it, you've made a mistake and you got a penalty. So, but with regards to like the judges and stuff, they did fantastic with what they had. Sometimes you would go into one station, there'd only be one person manning it. The energy that came from the reverse lunges, there was a guy and a girl, and you'll see him on my video. The guy high fives me as I come in, and the girl starts counting my reps, and she's the energy from that station set a nice precedent for the rest of the race. It kind of puts you in a good mood when you see that kind of energy, and they're the sorts of personalities you really need on a race like that. And it's probably more important for the people at the lower end of the spectrum to see that kind of judge. And you see it a lot at Deadly Dozen as well. If you see some of my videos from Deadly Dozen, certainly the Alexander Stadium one, the judges there were just absolutely fantastic. It's not about simply making sure you do your reps. It's not about simply counting the distance or keeping an eye on your movement standards. They're there supporting you. That they are there to keep you going and motivate you when you're in the pain cave, and to keep you going when you're starting to fatigue. And I think that side of the judging is underrated. It's not celebrated enough. Those guys are so good at what they do. And I think moving into the future, there's potentially some video that I can make from the judging perspective. Like if I volunteered more and took my cameras with me and filmed that experience, maybe it might encourage others to, in the same way that I'm trying to encourage people to go and do these types of events, maybe use that same way of sort of getting people to go and do volunteering at DEKA, at Deadly Dozen, Hyrox, whatever, and just sort of review the volunteering side of things. Because if it's good enough, people will be attracted to it. Like I said, it's about making those volunteer packages good enough, isn't it, to attract people?
No, I agree. I think that's a really good idea, actually, because that would perhaps inspire people to like see where the judge's perspective is, and maybe it's not as scary as we think. I think a lot of people are a bit scared of doing some judging, that they're going to get it wrong or whatever. But I think it would be better to have a judge there to get it wrong than it would be to have no judges.
Yeah,
but I have a bit of a joke, and it is meant in jest with my sort of Purple Army here at my gym. And when we go to an event, we have a rule that you're not allowed to comment on a judge or the lack of judges if you haven't volunteered yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just a rule that we brought in. It started off as a bit of banter, and actually it's developed into quite a bit of a good joke here. That, do you know what? There was a lack of judges and you didn't have anyone count you, but actually, did you go and be a flexi judge after you finished racing? And they don't have to do that, but I don't think they should make the comment otherwise. That's just my kind of perspective.
It's tough. I think I was a little while back. I was trying to get on the judging for Hyrox, and I think what you generally find is, I think at the point I was trying to sign up, it was still a ticket. You got a ticket for an event rather than a early bird, whatever. And you generally find that the good shifts, the mid shifts, all sell out quite quickly on the Saturday and the Sundays. They all disappear. Now, before you know it, you've only got the late shifts and stuff. And that I think that was the deterrent, because I wouldn't then be able to do it if it was 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, to include travel and stuff. But it does get difficult, and you can see why it becomes difficult. I mean, not all hybrid fitness comps are going on till that late. I mean, it's quite specifically Hyrox that runs from dusk till dawn, isn't it? The others start about 10 and finish about 3, and they have a much shorter window to fill. The DEKA event was it was a 2-dayer, wasn't it? So they obviously had a lot more people to get in, but I don't think it went on till late in the evening.
They were they invited the affiliates and members to this pub just across the road.
Nice.
And they hired out the whole bar, like reserved the whole bar so that everyone could come with their members from the gym. And they started at 6:30 in the evening. So that was on the Saturday night. So in the middle of their 2 days, all the staff of DEKA were able to be in there, and it created a great atmosphere. They did a really good job of the looking after the community bit, which, you know, you don't have to go too far to find criticism about Hyrox's lack of doing affiliate-based sort of inclusion events or whatever. So, you know, I think DEKA hit the nail on the head there, and it was really good. They did so well with that. But from a DEKA perspective and an athlete's point of view, other than the obvious, you know, like my mate Tate, he always says he loves a strong because you don't do any running in DEKA strong. But apart from the obvious, where you know running 160 meters between or 500 meters between, now we've had that arena perspective rather than, as you put in your video, just the affiliates doing their versions. What do you now think of the whole package that DEKA has as a like trifecta type event?
No, I do quite enjoy the trifectas. I've done these are all trifectas, so I'm not detached from that model. I quite like a multi-part medal. I do, and I haven't done a strong this year. I've done a fit and a mile, and I can't. I've got to find a strong in the Midlands before the end of the year to go and do it.
Well, if you drive to us, what would you be? You'd be an hour and 10. You could do it in, and we've got 2 more this year.
Where are you?
So we're Cambridge, or just North Cambridge. So, you know,
I might have to do that.
sort of between Huntingdon and Cambridge. So we're, you know,
that'd be good, wouldn't it? The trifectas are fantastic. I generally find, I did the mile. I've done a couple of miles, and I found that over quite quickly. So obviously the strong is 15 minutes or thereabouts, isn't it? Depending on how good you are. So it's over very, very quickly. It's very intense version of the same sport. And then as you obviously work your way through, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as a short, medium and long. I would describe it as intense, medium intense and less intense. Because the one thing I did notice from the fit, that by making those runs longer, it just separates the exercises out. And it's horses for courses. There's runners and not runners. You're always going to find that there's guys in the gym that just want to smash weights, and there's guys at the gym that just want to do running, and then there's the hybrid athletes in the middle, throwing weights around. And it's there's kind of got something for everybody. And like I said, the 10 exercises themselves are not particularly difficult. I mean, you've got quite you've got an entire contingent of people that are over 60, 70 sometimes, that are still going to these things and having a great time. And this is one of the epiphanies as you get older, that you sort of think you're over the hill. You pass 30, you pass 40, and you're thinking, oh God, how am I still going to be able to show up and perform at any kind of meaningful level? And I went and just a very short side story. I went down to an athletics track down in Oxford with the X Endurance team. They have a team called Team X and if you look at the vest that I race in, it's theirs. And that's because they've set such a good example to me and to many people to support people of all ages. They set about doing this quite early on, and I went to this race day, and there was loads of, like you see, there's loads of people of all different ages, and I'm there not because I've won anything, but more because I've got the YouTube channel, and I like to talk about this sort of stuff loads. And but a lot of the people there were people that were going to Worlds and that qualified, but most of the people there were older than me. Most of them were in their late 40s, 50s. A couple of guys over 60 that were just smashing it. And it
was one of those Miles. Was Miles McNulty one of them?
I don't think so.
The older guy. No, not Miles.
That was a couple of years ago. So the team has swapped around a few times since then, and when there's been new people, and and it's such an incredible, inspirational thing to see. People over 60 still not only going and smashing these things, but throwing in gun shows up and
the 30-year-olds as well.
Being really proud of being fit, and really owning that at over 60, 65, fantastic. And that's inspiring to me. That's where I want to be when I'm their age, when I'm a grown up. I want to be them, because it's easy to think. And so many blokes are in this position and in the sort of non-fitness that they see 40, 50 like they're past it. But with the sort of introduction of age bracketing into hybrid fitness, which is something you don't necessarily, you don't see the 40s to 45 sprinters at the Olympics, do you? You don't see, you see it in local league races and stuff, but it's not necessarily gone out into mainstream, if you follow me. But in Hyrox and in the hybrid fitness competitions, you gauge not simply by gender, but by age, right, bracketed down to a 5-year chunk in most instances, isn't it? So right now I've just gone up into the 45 to 49, and I'm going to live here for 5 years, and I won't be competing against the 18-year-olds that are going to make me feel terrible about myself. I will be just racing against the 45-year-olds that will make me feel terrible about myself. So because as it turns out, 40 to 49 is still a ridiculously competitive category, and you don't really figure out this until you're in it, and you're checking your results after and going, how did I do today? Are you looking, oh balls, because there is so many insanely talented, insanely fit guys that are the same age as me, and you wouldn't necessarily, if you weren't in the know, if you didn't have access to those statistics and saw those people in real life running around Hyrox's, deadlifts, DEKAs, it would be almost impossible, almost unfathomable to think that these guys at that age can perform that well. Again, inspiring. I don't necessarily. I'm not inspired by the Hunter McIntyres. I'm inspired by the guy that goes 2 minutes faster than me. I'm inspired by the guys that are my age or 5 years older than me that are going 2 minutes faster, 3 minutes, 10 minutes faster than me, and they're the ones that really do get my cogs turning. Like, yes, I want to be more like that guy, not the guys at the top. And I guess that takes me back to wanting to put myself out to people around this, that would look up to me in the same way that I look up to them, but I just obviously have a way of telling those stories through YouTube. So
yeah, no, it's really good to hear that side of your version, but how it relates to, most people. Like, if you look at the chunk of people in there, obviously the Gen Zers, they're all in there, but there is a lot within our kind of 35 to 55 age bracket within the hybrid sport that are like the everyday athletes, right? And you're talking to those people, and you're seeing the inspirational stories like we are of those people on the track and in the arenas making waves, and it's so inspiring, because you look at them and think, hold on, you're my age, how are you managing that? And they're just like they're a dad, they're a business owner, they're everything you are. So what's your excuse? Why are you not out there doing that? And it's really cool. It's a great story, Martin, actually. And let's go on to Deadly Dozen, but I wanna frame it this way, because it would be great to get someone cold on this and just ask it. So DEKA, like you said, in America, massive, in there before Hyrox. Then they try and take it worldwide, and it looks like they're doing okay. There's lots of affiliates now in all countries everywhere. We were the 8th affiliate in the UK in 2023, October 23, and we were the 8th affiliate. We've now got over 50. So it has grown, but we were really keen that they put a DEKA Fit in 2024. Really keen that they had that arena event. And we kept saying, we need this now. If you don't do this now, something else might come along and take that group of people that are ready for that. Like you said, with the way Hyrox has grown, and as the others rise, they're going to take their chunk of the market. Deadly Dozen came along at the ideal time, I think, for the UK fitness racing community, because they offered an opportunity to have 4 events in 2024, and then that's increased massively in 2025. Do you think if DEKA had acted very soon after Hyrox and tried to do what Hyrox did in America, but the opposite way around in the UK, that they may have found some real success there in DEKA?
Yeah, I think the fact that they've done this in 2025 and sold out an event, a 2-day event at that scale, suggests the appetite is there. It is there. And if they'd have done that last year with 1 event, if they'd have simply gone back 1 year, by this year they'd have had 3 events, and by next year they'd have had 10 events. And they would have been further along. And you could argue that more people are going off and doing Deadly Dozens now, but the amount of people that compete at each Deadly Dozen is quite small. It's only going to be a sort of a tiny pebble in a pond, really. Each of these events, it's in the hundreds, but when you start doing 2-day events in arenas, it starts to get into the thousands. It is just a numbers game. If you sell out an event, a 2-day event, then it makes sense to throw out 2, doesn't it? Another one. It will likely sell out again, and it will start to create the same pattern of behavior that we've seen from Hyrox, that there will be people that enjoyed it, like myself, that will go back and buy another ticket, and all of the media that they created from the first one will act as a temptation for the new people, that they would have likely stockpiled a lot of quite glossy footage of people competing at this event from the media team. They were very active at that event, so they've likely got loads of footage that they can put out to entice people to come and do a DEKA. And if they're smart, they will sell it as being more accessible than Hyrox, right? Hyrox is a tough ask for people that are relatively new to fitness, and there are loads of people that are relatively new to fitness, and it's not just for those people either, because you can do it at any speed, and you can make it hard for even the fittest person if you go fast enough, but because it's over and done with in much less time. Let's say if you're a brand new person to fitness, you go to a Hyrox, it takes you 2 hours. It would likely take you probably just over an hour to do a DEKA, won't it? It's so much less, and it can act as a stepping stone. And some people may never be Hyrox ready, or feel that they're ready for a Hyrox. I mean, anybody could go and do a Hyrox. It would just take longer. It's again very simple exercises, but it's quite voluminous. And as is Deadly Dozen, it's quite voluminous. But DEKA is less voluminous. Even the biggest version, the Fit, is much less voluminous than those other two. When I'd finished competing, I didn't feel like I was toast. You sort of hobble away from DEKA and from Hyrox and Deadly Dozen sometimes, because you put that much into it and it's that voluminous. The amount of reps and distance required from each of the exercise stations, it takes from an hour to 2 hours, depending on your ability at each of those things. Whereas a DEKA is much less. It feels much more open to the people that have not been training for a long time, or might just be at a lower level of ability than others. But if I had to say to someone what should my first event be, I'd probably be steering, say, a relatively new person in a training environment, gym environment, towards, say, the mile, because it's not as furious, as I said before. It's not as intense as the strong. It's not as bang, 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 bang. You've still got the runs to break up the exercises, but the runs themselves are not so far that it would crush someone that's new to fitness. And you can walk away after 30, 40 minutes and still have had a really good time with it. I think DEKA's really got its place, but it needs to play and make itself attractable to those people. Not necessarily. It's hard, because you're always going to get the top guys are always going to want to come and win that. But I think if DEKA really wants to make ground in the marketplace, they should start to aim their material they put out, the videos and stuff, just at entry level.
That everyday person.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's certainly when they're affiliating out, and people will start to get exposure to it and see it in real gyms and stuff like that, and have chance to do it at their own gym facilities. It's really cool.
No, that's cool. What was exciting for me as a lover of Deadly Dozen and DEKA, I love them, and I love Hyrox as well. To be honest, I feel loyal to Hyrox, like you said. There's that loyalty, right? Of you did that early on, and you feel like you want to keep going. It still excites you, but we love it all. That's why we're here, right? What really filled my heart with joy was seeing Jason Curtis, the founder of Deadly Dozen, do DEKA Fit, and then expose that to all of his followers and say how great it was. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I bumped into Jason just before my own race, just after his race, and he had a fantastic time and a fantastic race. And we talked about it a little bit, and he talked to me about that now he wants to go away and improve his running, because he saw it more as a foot race with exercises rather than exercises with a run. He saw it from the opposite way around. A lot of people that certainly don't necessarily like the running components see it as exercises with running. He saw it as running with the occasional exercise. And it's an interesting perspective, an interesting conversation that I had with him. And then obviously after the fact, he started to put out video sort of selling the Deadly Dozen. Selling DEKA, selling its positives, and really helping out. And I think that's important. He shouldn't necessarily see it as competition to his own business. He should see it as almost an ally in raising both of those competitions up to a higher standing, to take on the likes of Hyrox.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It was very like that. It was like allies meeting, and
Yeah.
I think he called Yancey for a doubles.
Yeah,
like
yeah, I said that.
that'll be
That'll be
interesting. I'll be there with my camera. So then, just from your perspective and what you do, finishing on Deadly Dozen, let's talk about that quickly, specifically. So, you've done a few. We've seen some great videos from you on your channel.
Yeah.
What's your kind of gut feeling about Deadly Dozen and its expansion? I know we touched on it earlier, but for me, just to set the tone, I feel like when I look at a Deadly Dozen, the majority, there's a lot of everyday people there already, and it's really good. It's really like a nice atmosphere, and you feel really welcomed when you're on that arena. What are your thoughts on that?
Just repeat the question. You just cut out briefly.
So what's your thoughts on like the Deadly Dozen arena and the everyday people that you see there already? And you've done a few. What's your kind of overall perspective of where the Deadly Dozen sits in this world?
In terms of the people that it attracts, it is a complete spectrum. I show up on all of my races. I look out on the track, and there is people of all ages and abilities, body types, heights. And again, it's inspiring to see, and it's interesting. Makes me wonder how each of these people has got to that race. I think, right, how have you saw this, and how have you ended up here today? I mean, these are questions that go around in my head, and ultimately everyone's there for the same thing: to test themselves, to try their hardest, to put themselves through something challenging, and then succeed at it so that they can feel good about themselves, right? That's kind of like the underlying motive for just about everything at every level and every competition. People just want to be challenged, and they want some validation that the training and preparation that they put into the build up to get to where they are, that it's working, that it's done something, that's improved them, and they're better than they were before they started that journey. And I think at Deadly Dozen, I think again it's at the harder end of the spectrum in terms of competitions. I would say it pips Hyrox in terms of difficulty, because the way I describe how I rate difficulty is how many days I can feel it in my legs afterwards. And more often than not, if I've gone out on the Saturday, I can still feel it on the Wednesday. It is insane because of the sheer volume of reps and distance that you have to do. But having said that, as hard as it is, like you say, it's attracting very everyday people, and the bank managers and community nurses and all professions, all ages and builders and body types. It's and I sit there filming people going by, and sometimes got the drone out and watching these people, and they're all absolutely smashing it, and it's inspiring to see that you don't necessarily have to be shirtless with six packs, and you can. It's reaching people at a very basic level throughout the world, and it's just something for them to come and test themselves at. And I think Deadly does it very well. It's marketing feature in its videos that it creates, the media team, that they're capturing real people as well. It's not like at Hyrox, they go for inspirational stories or people doing PBs. Like I said earlier, Deadly are not afraid to throw the bank managers to the front of the queue and ask, someone very normal in a very normal job with a very normal story, and interview them, and it makes them then feel very special that they're being asked these things about that sport, and it's a great thing to be a part of and witness and watch. If you're into people watching, just sit at the edge of a Deadly Dozen and watch the people go round and round and round and round. You will see more real people than you will shirtless six packs, I can assure you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been quoted on saying that exact line. There is less of the shirts off at Deadly Dozen for sure. Yeah, no, there is a few. You're right. Yeah, you are right. So let's save the last word then. We talked about kids earlier, but anyone who follows you will probably be very sort of familiar with your daughter and probably parkrun. I think that's probably a fair assessment if they follow you, and they'll see the parkruns that you and your daughter do. Just a word on her and the importance of getting kids into fitness. You touched on it earlier.
Yeah. So from an early age, almost back to the pushchair age, Isabel and my son Charlie have come to parkrun with us, and we're hundreds of parkruns in by now. And with 2 kids in a pushchair, pushing them around a 5K every Saturday morning, it's quite hard work. And certainly as one of them gets a bit older, 6 years old, whatever, they start to get a bit heavy. Isabel, just after she turned 6 on one of these parkruns, jumped out and said, I'm going to run a bit. Okay, go for it. And so she ran a few hundred meters, whatever, and jumped back in the pushchair. And this happened a few weeks. And then before you know it, she's running a bit more and a bit more, until one day she manages to string all of them together and run the entire thing. Then we set her up to run with her granny, at her speed. So we're talking 32 minutes, something like that. And over time, Isabel, she got a bit quicker. And we're still talking 6 years old, until she's too fast for granny. So she then starts running with mummy. And suddenly we've got all the way up to about 24 minutes with us in the same sort of thing. And just after she turned 7, she sort of got to the point where it was getting difficult for mummy to keep up. I ran with her for the first time. And pretty much since then, I've ran with her most weeks. And what essentially is happening, a combination of regularity, consistency, and having a good time with, well, her whole family, but me actually on the runs. It's created this really important cornerstone in our routine that we value hugely now. And just last week she ran 21:38 at 9 years old. 21:38 5K.
Yeah.
And that was a 131st run of that distance. So we started making videos about it quite early on, to sort of try to inspire other kids. We set her up her own YouTube because she knew I had a YouTube channel. Daddy, when can I have my YouTube channel? So I made her a YouTube channel. And at first we tried her like opening things. You see kids opening things on YouTube. I thought that might work. But I'm not prepared to sit there and buy lots of things that she's going to unbox. So one of those first runs that she ran with me, I recorded, and she ran an absolute blinder. Like she ran out of her skin. I think she got a 27-minute that day. She just turned 7, and she, at the end she cried in my arms, and it was lovely. But the video got 27,000 views, and it got the cogs turning. And I was like, oh, maybe there's some people were posting how inspiring it was, and they're going to go out and take their kids to parkrun, and they're going to find this, that, the other. And I thought, okay. So we set about creating a series of videos, not just parkruns, but just having fun with running and fitness and this and that. And over the course of the last 2 years, we've documented a lot of her journey, but had a lot of fun making those videos. Sometimes it'll be with a GoPro, and sometimes it'll be with my phone, whatever. It's nothing too taxing. And it's basically just following her journey. And now on Wednesday, she does athletics, which is causing her to get better again, because before that she was only ever running on Saturday or Sunday. And so, yeah, it's just led to this fantastic development and enjoyment, and a story of that through the videos is coming through now on her YouTube, and I've started to share them more on my Instagram because it's something we do together. And I've sort of changed, while my YouTube is about me and my fitness stuff, my Instagram is about more of what we do as a family fitness wise. Still very fitness oriented, but it's about, if we go for a run, I'll film that, and if we go to do this, I'll do that. So it's not just like personal. It's not stuff like we going to the zoo or whatever. It's physical, and it's with the bottom line is trying to inspire others, and that's generally what we've tapped into. Again, a lot of feedback. Again, I've looked at the analytics, and it's a complete different chunk of people to my YouTube, whereas it's mainly men in the 30s to 50 age bracket. On Instagram, it's mainly women between the ages of 20 and 40, you know, the people that have children that are watching this type of content, and they're the most of the people that are commenting on the videos are people that have kids themselves and have questions about how to get their kids started, or how to motivate them, or how to support them best. And yeah, it's a fantastic thing to be a part of. The best line I always use, because I always run immediately behind Isabel, is it's the best seat in town to the best show on earth. And I don't know how long that seat's going to be mine, because she is getting closer and closer to my 5K time. So before long, she would likely be running away. But yeah, I'm going to hold on for as long as I can.
Yeah, that's a great quote. That's really cool. It's best seat in town to the greatest show on earth, right?
Yeah. Seeing a kid develop like that, seeing her enjoy her running, it is truly, you know, I used to run on my own at parkruns before she was fast enough to run with me, and now I can't imagine running without her. You know, and the kicker is she can't run without me until she's 11, so she's stuck with me until then.
Yeah, fair. Brilliant. I mean, we probably could go on and on and on, because it's really interesting to hear all of these anecdotal stories, these little moments, these great thoughts on the industry. Is absolutely brilliant. Let's say I'm introducing people to you for the first time in this episode, listening and watching. Where can they follow this journey?
So just if you want to see any of the videos that have been talked about in this podcast, just simply go on YouTube and search Martin Boyce. I'll be in there. I'm sure I'm not the only Martin Boyce, but I'm the only one with this face. So I'm quite easy to find. There's loads of videos. Literally, if you search for Hyrox, Deadly Dozen, DEKAs, you quite likely stumble across one of my videos anyway. Please give the channel a subscribe if you're interested. As to what we just talked about with regards to Isabel and her running, if you're interested in trying to get kids into fitness, and you just want to see, if you want to show your kids, show your child how other kids are doing it and how other parents are supporting it, then search for Isabel Sparkle, which is her YouTube name, on YouTube, and there's loads of cool videos on there. If you're an Instagram type, just at Mart Boyce on Instagram. They're the main ones. So yeah, go check it out.
Brilliant. Well, from me, a massive thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been brilliant to fire some questions your way and get your opinions and thoughts on the industry. And from me to you, keep doing what you're doing, because it's really helpful for us. You know, the consumer, the gym owner. You know, it's very helpful content. It's very good to be able to signpost people over to you and get them to watch it. So keep doing what you're doing, and appreciate your time tonight. So everyone who's watching or listening, wherever that might be, thanks very much for tuning in. If you think what Martin's had to say is something that you would like someone to hear, or you want to like point them in the direction of his YouTube videos, then absolutely do that. But if you want to subscribe, like, and comment on our channel for us small guys, it's a big thing for us. You know, we're putting a lot of time and effort in, driven by passion only. So I do appreciate every single listener, and I'm really hopeful that we can meet here again to discuss more on the rocks. Cheers, guys.